All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Integrating SEL Competencies in a Remote Learning Environment. Today we'll be focusing on self-management. We're really excited to have you joining us for the NICE Remote Learning Series. Sessions will provide educators opportunities to extend and refine their practices, engaging students in remote or online learning. We will showcase high-impact practices, model strategies, share resources, and highlight ways to facilitate effective remote learning. Although you'll see that many of the strategies and resources we share are applicable to in-person traditional learning settings as well. We are just going to go over a couple of things before we get started. If you could, please keep your mic on mute unless you're speaking. We have a really small group today, so feel free to unmute yourself and speak up if you have a question or if you want to make a comment. And if you wouldn't mind just turning your video on so we could see your face, that would be awesome. And you'll find both of those buttons at the left-hand screen. We'll be interacting with the chat today, which you'll also find down at the bottom. Kind of in the middle, you'll see a thought bubble there to interact with the chat. And my name is Brooke Drennan, and presenting with me today is Linda Stewart. We're both literacy coaches with the Rural Life Grant. We've been supporting schools in implementing personalized learning and literacy strategies for the past 2 years and are excited to talk about this topic with you today. If you'd like to access the materials from this session, you can go to the schedule registration page and everything we present today will be available there. For one part of the session, you will need access to the slides because there's a link. There are actually several links on one of the slides that we're going to be utilizing and a choice board. So if you haven't done so already, if you could just open up the presentation, you can follow along with us or just jump to that slide when we get to that part of the presentation. I'm going to toss it over to Linda.
Thanks, Brooke. So social emotional learning is the topic of our series, or SEL, and it's a process through which children and also adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And in the 4 sessions, we will discuss self-awareness, was last week, self-management today, relationship building, and social awareness. And it's our hope that you leave the session with actionable strategies and resources that you can incorporate into your day. If you were here last week, you remember this wheel, I'm sure. So CASEL has divided SEL into 5 categories, and each of them begin in the classroom with curriculum and instruction that helps the student recognize each of the categories in themselves and strategies to help them cope and grow, which then widens into school-wide practices and policies so that the student can continue to grow in a safe environment in their school. And eventually, the hope is that this learning will reach home and spread throughout the community where everyone can share and continue to learn. In today's session of self-management, we will explore how to regulate emotions and behaviors, manage stress, set goals, and get organized. Self-management is really critical today in the world we live in, and for students, I'm sure it can be very scary. So with COVID-19, schools reopening, and uncertainty about the future, students need to be able to regulate their emotions, their thoughts, and behaviors. They need to be able to manage stress and to be able to set goals and stay motivated to achieve them. So in today's session, we will give you resources and strategies that can help guide your students in becoming self-managers.
Those are some really good points you just made, Linda, and I think something else is self-management is going to be so important when so much learning is being done at home and the teachers aren't there to help support teachers or students as much as we can in the classroom. So sharing some of these strategies with parents too, I think is going to be really important. But how was he able to curb those infamous impulses and avoid eating the cookies, even when he was left alone?
I'm proud of him.
Me too. I wanted to eat those cookies.
I mean, I have to admit, with everything that's going on, I've struggled myself. I'm proud of Cookie Monster.
Yes. I feel like I need a double dose of chocolate every day.
Yeah.
So how was he able to be successful?
The deep breaths, that's something I forget to do, is I forget to breathe.
So the deep breaths, other strategies like singing the song or thinking about something that he read, but he was taught and explicitly taught and really practiced some strategies to be able to self-regulate. So I think that those strategies that we can teach students to self-manage, even when we're not there right by their side, are going to be very critical for helping students in a virtual environment. So also, before, as we get started today, I'd like to think about, and Elizabeth, are you already back in the classroom physically or virtually?
Okay, so I'm in Hawkins County,
Okay.
and this week was all virtual. And next week we are starting, we're still on red, and we are starting with 25% of the school population coming in Monday through Thursday. And those that have an IEP or those with a 504 can come all 4 days. And I'm special ed, I'm extended resource special ed, so I'll be having students next week.
Okay. And so they've been working virtually as well. And I think that a lot of us, and even those who are going to be watching later, watching the recording, are working with students in a virtual setting. So what strategies have you noticed that students really need that are critical in a virtual environment for self-management?
Still, the taking of the deep breaths. I had to talk one through that today. Just the lag in the internet sometimes, or the delay in the video. Just the uploading, it can be very frustrating for the kids.
And for us too, right?
Yes. I was right there with them.
Does anyone else have any ideas about self-management skills that are going to be critical for helping students in a virtual environment as we move forward?
I've been, as a parent, my 7th grader, just helping him look across the week and make a plan for when assignments are due. I mean, in some cases, he's online and they do the activity and finish it up, as soon as I, have a moment or get out of class. Like they might have an hour-long class, but they don't spend every minute of that hour, let's say, on Zoom. But it's real easy that, let's say they spend 30 minutes on Zoom, to be like, I'll just do that later. And then all of a sudden you've got 6 classes that all have a little something else to do all later at 3 o'clock, instead of just using that time wisely when it's given to you. So much like our kids in the classroom, when you give them a little bit of time to work on their homework and you find them doing everything else but working on their homework. And then also helping him just prioritize. So if you've got several things, maybe, these things aren't really due until Friday afternoon. How do you figure out which one to do first, second, third? So kind of prioritizing a list of things that have to be done. And not becoming overwhelmed at the list. That one too.
Yeah, thank you both for your input. I think that all of those strategies are going to be important moving forward. And I don't have kids. I have a nephew who is in the 3rd grade, and I stopped by to check in on him and see how his distance learning was going. And I was just on his Google Classroom, the student point of view, and my sister said, you know about this, just check and see if he's completed everything that he needs to have finished today. And with all of his classes on there and the different assignments, it was difficult for me, and I used Google Classroom for years as a teacher, but it was difficult for me to keep track of that and see, and to go down that list and see, yeah, so there was a lot of clicking involved, even looking at that to-do list, which I think is very helpful. I think as teachers, we need to be mindful to make sure that we're organizing things for students in a way that makes it easy for them to see what they had to do. And also like setting like titles as due dates, and making sure that we set due dates on there so that they can get on there and check that to-do list, because it was a little overwhelming. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time just on our own, reviewing some resources, and looking at some of those skills that are going to be most critical. And I think Linda is going to explain that for us.
We are going to have you look at a tic-tac-toe choice board. If you do personalized learning, this is a great tool to give students choice. Keep that in mind. Each of the boxes contains information dealing with self-management. We'd like for you to start with box 5, the one in the middle with the star, and then choose 2 other boxes to make your tic-tac-toe. The yellow boxes deal with goal setting and organization, and the blue boxes deal with regulating emotions and cognitive behavior. Then we'd like for you to click on Jamboard, and we'd like for you to share your takeaways, your favorite strategies or ideas. And you can click on Jamboard right up there where it's underlined and says Jamboard. You can click on that, and it will take you to a whiteboard where you can then do little post-its and type on the post-its. You want to show them that, Brooke?
Sure.
In case you never used Jamboard. I hadn't until the other day, so.
So it's just blank here, and so we're just thinking about which skills are going to be critical and what strategies you're gleaning from these resources that are going to help support. And you can just click over here on a sticky note or an image. You can draw and just add to the board. So we'll just all collaborate on that. And so we'll just take some time, and we got started a little late and we're running a little behind. We'll take about 6 minutes on this, which probably won't be enough time to dig into everything. And I do have to fix a couple of these links. I'm so sorry that the text isn't showing up. I just have to change the color. So if you want to go ahead and get started, we'll start the timer, and then we'll just all come back together on the Jamboard. take about 1 minute and just finish up what the resource that you're looking at right now. And if you didn't have time to view all of them, hopefully you'll have some time to check those out, maybe during our extended conversation. Okay, so we'll just hop on over to the Jamboard now and see if anyone's had time to add anything. And since we're running short on time, we may just stick here for a minute. And then, like I said, if we have time to stick around for that extended conversation, we can definitely do that. But just thinking about some of the resources that you viewed, what really stood out as some strategies that will be very helpful for students this fall, especially through the lens of virtual learning?
So I forget what article it was I read. It had mentioned having like a calm down area for them to go to when it's frustrated. And I thought, well, yeah, I do that in my classroom. And I never thought about suggesting it to the parents about having that area, a little spot in their homes. We utilize that a lot in my classroom. The students know when they get frustrated and they need a break, to say that they need a break, they need to go to calm down. We have two areas. One's a mat that they consider lay on, and then we have like a little library area that is more, I guess, like a living room, more homey feel, or they can go and sit in a chair and look at a book to read. So I think applying that, and they already know how to use it in my classroom, would help them transition more with doing it at home.
I think that's going to be critical, Elizabeth, that you bring up sharing those ideas for parents to use at home. And something that I was thinking about as I was reading one of the articles, when it began talking about flexible seating and spaces and having those different spaces, I think about all of the restrictions that we have in our physical classrooms this year. And how we can maneuver that, but also what about at home, just even setting up those work areas at home. I know I've seen a lot of parents doing that, getting maybe even the science fair boards and setting those up and creating those workstations. I think having that designated spot just for work is going to help with things like time management and staying on task as well. Great point. Does anyone else have any strategies that you gleaned from the resources or that you just used that you think will be very helpful?
I'll add that just this past week with my son, the fact that his teachers, a couple of his teachers had added a rubric of some sort for them to reflect on the work they were about to turn in via Canvas, helped him assess whether or not he was doing everything that maybe the directions had said, but he had somehow forgotten as he was, also working on the project. So, that kind of rubric that's there as almost like just like the teacher that's there. Like in a classroom, the teacher might say it 5 or 6 times over the course of the 20 minutes or something. But in this case, with the teacher not being there during that independent work time, it was a go-to place to make sure I had all the things that teacher wanted me to have, and I could see it kind of on a scale, like if this side of the rubric, if I've got one piece of evidence versus this side of the rubric where I've got 4 or 5 pieces of evidence. So it helped him just self-assess where his product was in comparison to what the directions said and maybe what the teacher was after.
I think rubrics, checklists, those things are going to be crucial now more than ever, and even maybe assigning students partner to help them self-assess or to keep each other on track, I think is a really good idea that I've seen. Something in a resource that Linda shared, I don't know if anyone checked that out, but it was an improvement, a bunch of different improvement plans for students to complete, and I thought that those were really smart, and those are linked in one of the articles that's on the choice board, just ready to go. I think it was on the one helping students, use improvement plans to develop self-regulation. So there's a link in there to some PDFs, and those are ready to go for students. So I think something like that could be really useful for at-home learning as well. I also liked that parent guide from Newsella that actually came from their SEL resources. So another thing I was thinking about today as I was preparing for this is just some of those resources that we may have. So if your district is an amplified district, I know they've released some pre-made lessons called starting points that are SEL activities, just a way to start the year off, either in person or remote. So some of your curriculum companies may have released some similar things. And also if you have the paid version of Newsella, they have an SEL curriculum on there. And I don't know if maybe you can get a free trial and check that out. But I know that a lot of people are releasing SEL resources because they see that as a critical need, especially beginning the school year. There are lots of great resources in the choice board that we shared. Something that I would check out if you didn't have time is the sample teaching activities to support self-management, and that's from Castle. And they just have strategies for each focus area of SEL. And so I just pulled the ones from self-management there to share with you. And I also liked that brain scavenger hunt activity just as a strategy to help students feel calm during distance learning. And that came from an article that actually had 4 strategies for helping them feel calm. And I think I linked it there on that document. I didn't put the whole thing there because I knew we weren't going to have time to read it all. So I didn't want to stress anyone out with that. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add? We're just a tiny bit over on time, so I do want to be respectful of your time. I know that you're super busy and have lots of things to do. Linda, would you add anything?
It was really hard to narrow down what to put on the choice board. There were so many good things out there that I found it very difficult to do. It's so important for time management for these students at home. And if there's no one there to kind of watch over them, who knows if they're going to do it when they need to. So checklists, weekly planners, can be helpful. I really like that the grit curriculum lesson and talking about the SMART goals, how important grit is. You have to be determined, and you need grit in order to stay on track and to be focused. So there's some excellent resources.
Absolutely. Speaking of resources, there is one thing that I wanted to share with you. If you're interested in making a choice board like this for your students, I just pulled this idea from a website that I linked onto the bottom in the participant copy. You'll see the notes there. Just make your own choice board. You can do that really easily by clicking on that link, and you'll just make a copy, and then you can insert your own links to the resources. And this is a good virtual learning activity for students. We did have one more activity that we're not going to have time to do today, but it is something that you might find helpful, especially at the beginning of the year, working with students. We were going to ask you to use the WOOP method to set your own goal for this semester. So if you have time, you can do that. I think it's always important to have goals for students and for us. Just thinking about what's possible, thinking about a goal, what it's going to look like when we reach that goal, any obstacles that might stand in your way, and a plan that you have to overcome those. So I really liked this strategy, especially thinking about students participating in distance learning. They need those strategies just like Cookie Monster needed those strategies to avoid eating those cookies, and I could probably try to learn some of those as well. But just thinking about the strategies that we can teach the students and how we can help them come up with a plan. If this happens, what am I going to do? So if X happens, then I know that I can Y. I think that's really critical now. And also just remembering that when little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not join in their chaos. And I know right now there's a lot of chaos going on, especially for you teachers, and it is really difficult. So I'm not saying that you should not be stressed out, but it is also really important for us to share that calm with students when we are interacting with them. Um, and I know that is you guys are doing the most difficult job right now, um, and I admire all of you so greatly. But I just thought that was a good quote to end on, and that's Linda and I decided we wanted to do a quote with each one of these. We had one on the last session, and we liked it. So thank you so much. I'm rushing. I'm rambling on now. We have an evaluation. We would appreciate it if you would take our 1-minute survey. And this is just going to allow us to reflect on your thoughts about the session. We're always looking for ways to improve, so we would appreciate that feedback. And I think Bethany will drop that in the chat box. Thank you. And when you complete the evaluation, feel free to hop off if you need to. And if you'd like to stick around and talk about any of these resources in more detail, or if you're having like a really specific issue with virtual learning and you think that some self-management strategies would help your students, we could stick around and talk about that. So we'll stay on, and we just appreciate you being here with us today and sharing your time with us.
All right, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Well, that was
you.
nice.
I know that was great. Some great resources there to share. I updated Brooke the web page to represent you changing the font color on that Tic-Tac-Toe. So now that PDF version shows up with that black print.
Good, thank you. I didn't realize I had a presenter copy and a participant copy, and I guess I changed it on the presenter copy, but not the participant. So, dang, those things happen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you
I
set
don't
it up so quickly, and you fixed it so fast.
My computer has a little bit of lag.
Thank you guys. You did a really good job today.